The ballroom shimmered under chandeliers as Julian Langston, a rising tech mogul, stood beside his radiant bride, Amara. Her deep brown skin glowed against her white dress, and her calm smile concealed the storm brewing in the corners of the room. They had just said, "I do," but not everyone was celebrating. Whispers snaked through the crowd like venom. "She's only in it for his money. She didn't even finish college. I heard she used to waitress just 2 years ago." The murmurs weren't new to Amara. Ever since she and Julian went public, the headlines and gossip had been relentless. The combination of her race, beauty, and humble beginnings made her a target. Julian came from old money, his parents owned a chain of investment firms, and his circle of friends was filled with Ivy League graduates, country club executives, and politicians' sons. Amara, on the other hand, was a self-made woman, but no one had taken the time to learn her story. As the toasts began, Julian's best man, Ethan, smirking and slightly drunk, raised his glass and said with mock charm, "To Julian, who's always had a generous heart. And to Amara, may your taste in jewelry be as rich as your new bank account." Laughter erupted from a few tables, but Julian's jaw tightened. Amara's fingers curled under the tablecloth. She said nothing, not yet. What they didn't know was that Amara had already made a silent move just an hour earlier, a bank transfer large enough to rattle every judgmental person in that room. The timer had started. And soon, everything would flip. Amara's eyes scanned the room, faces cloaked in politeness but dripping with contempt. Her mother-in-law, Evelyn Langston, sat stiffly in her designer gown, clutching her pearls like Amara's very presence was an offense. On her left, Julian's college friend, Richard, leaned toward his wife and whispered something that made them both snicker. Julian placed his hand gently over hers under the table. His grip was tight, protective. He had warned her about how cold his world could be. But Amara wasn't naive. She had seen it coming. She'd prepared for this exact moment, not with tears, but with precision. Just an hour before the wedding, Amara had stepped away during makeup. Not for nerves, not for vanity, but for business. She logged into an offshore corporate account under the name Amara Innovations Global. The transfer was scheduled to go public later that evening, $4.8 million redirected to launch a community tech hub in South LA, fully funded by her own tech patents. Not Julian's money, not his family's, hers. The room didn't know she held 5 AI-related patents. They didn't know she had sold a predictive logistics algorithm to a Fortune 500 company a year ago. That she had ghost-designed the operating framework behind one of the most used food delivery apps in California. She never needed Julian's wealth. If anything, she had toned hers down to avoid intimidating him. But tonight, silence would become her weapon. The reception moved forward. Clinking glasses, artificial smiles, and a carefully choreographed dance between appearances and tension. Julian leaned close. "You okay?" Amara smiled. "I'm perfect. Let them enjoy this moment, while it lasts." In the next hour, their phones would buzz. Bankers, news reporters, her lawyer. The truth was about to crash their perfect little party. The clinking of champagne flutes mixed with murmurs as servers floated through the Langston Estate's grand ballroom. A string quartet played softly in the corner, trying to soften the tension that had started to coil itself around the guests like ivy. Julian stepped away briefly to speak with the event planner, leaving Amara momentarily alone at the head table. She could feel it then, the weight of every stare, the hushed tones behind manicured hands, and the smug laughter thinly veiled behind fake sips of wine. Across the room, Evelyn Langston whispered to her old money circle. "She's lovely, of course," Evelyn said with a venom-laced smile. "But I worry she's more interested in Julian's assets than his heart. That's all I'm saying." Someone chuckled. "Well, she did meet him after the Forbes article." "Coincidence? Not likely," another added. "A girl like that doesn't just stumble into money. She targets it." Amara heard every word, not literally, but she had grown up in rooms like these as the help's daughter. She knew the rhythm of elitist gossip, the coded language of bigotry masked as concern. They didn't hate her because they knew her. They hated her because they thought they did. She simply smiled and sipped her water, her diamond-studded bracelet catching the light. If they only knew it was a prototype from her upcoming luxury tech wearables line, each piece embedded with discrete health tracking systems. Then a vibration pulsed on one of the guests' phones. Another. Then another. One by one, heads tilted down to their screens. Brows furrowed. Eyes widened. Julian, halfway across the room, stopped mid-conversation as his phone buzzed with a headline. Black woman tech CEO makes massive donation to South LA. No husband, no investors, just brilliance. And just like that, the murmurs turned to gasps. The music faded beneath the ripple of murmurs. One by one, the elite guests at Julian's engagement party found themselves staring at their phones. The headline was everywhere on Twitter, on Instagram, even pushed out by financial news apps. Amara Brooks transfers $25 million to fund tech labs and scholarships for black youth in underserved communities. Julian's hand trembled slightly as he scrolled further. Not because he was shocked by the money, he had always known Amara was successful. But because he had no idea she was preparing this. She had told no one. The article laid everything bare. Amara Brooks, daughter of a single nurse from South Central LA, had not married into wealth, she had created it. Years before she even met Julian, she had sold her first AI-based cybersecurity patent for $8 million. She reinvested every dollar into building Code Bloom, a tech company that quietly powered over 40% of the back-end encryption systems used by Fortune 500 companies. No flashy press. No celebrity endorsements. Just results. Amara looked up slowly, her expression calm, even as a few women clutched their pearls and some men blinked in stunned silence. She stood, gracefully. No need to raise her voice. No need to fight the slurs with slurs. I wasn't going to say anything tonight, she began, her voice smooth, refined, but firm. But since so many of you seemed concerned about where I come from, let me offer a little transparency. She reached into her clutch and pulled out a slim, metallic card. She tapped it on the nearby digital podium. A screen behind her flickered to life, showing a single bank transfer receipt. $25 million. From Amara D. Brooks. Not a joint account. Not Julian's. Just hers. The room froze, she smiled. Any other questions? As the hush settled over the party like thick velvet, the guests sat frozen. Some stunned, others visibly uncomfortable. Julian's mother, Claudette, who had only moments ago scoffed behind her champagne flute, now looked as if the floor had been pulled from beneath her designer heels. Her expression twisted, first disbelief, then calculation. Julian, standing a few steps away from Amara, could barely process what was happening. His mind raced back to the countless whispers he'd overheard from concerned family members. She just wants your money. She's not our kind of people. Julian, you could do better than a woman who doesn't even come from money. Those words now echoed like a joke, because Amara hadn't just come from money. She made it, built it, silently, strategically. He remembered their late-night conversations, how she always spoke with passion about creating opportunities for underrepresented youth. How she stayed up late finalizing business plans, how she brushed off luxury for investment portfolios, and how she never once flaunted her success. She wasn't driven by vanity, but by vision. And now, standing there under the chandelier's golden light, she wasn't just his fiancée. She was a mogul, a genius, a force. Claudette finally found her voice. Why didn't you tell anyone about this donation? Amara's gaze was steady. Because it wasn't for you. It was for the kids who needed it. The ones who look like me. The ones no one else believes in. The silence deepened. A man in the back, one of Julian's uncles, whispered, "She's the real deal." Julian stepped forward, gently taking Amara's hand. For the first time in the entire evening, he wasn't thinking about damage control or appearances. He was thinking about how blind he had been to the power of the woman standing beside him. "Amara," he said softly, "you just changed everything." Applause began tentative at first, from the back of the room. A few claps from younger guests, then a swell as others followed suit. But not everyone was clapping. In fact, a sharp divide was forming. The ones who judged her the harshest, mostly Julian's affluent relatives, remained silent. Their eyes darted nervously, struggling to recalculate their opinions. They'd assumed Amara had nothing, came from nothing, and would remain nothing. But now the narrative had flipped, and they were exposed as the ones who had nothing, not in wealth, but in dignity. Julian's father, a stern and aloof man named Richard, stood up slowly. "Amara," he said, "may I ask how long you've had this fortune?" Amara met his gaze calmly. "I started my company 7 years ago." We hit our first million in year 3. I've been investing, scaling, and giving back ever since. I've never needed Julian's name, nor his wealth. I loved him, not his status. You could hear a pin drop. Julian turned toward his family, his voice clear and unshaking. All of you who doubted her, who whispered behind her back, should be ashamed. This woman has accomplished more in a decade than most of us in a lifetime. Amara gently squeezed his hand, not for support, but to remind him she was still composed, even as the room trembled with shifting power. Then suddenly, just as things started calming, a sharp voice pierced the moment. Claudette again. So, you mean to tell us you've been keeping secrets from this family? That's deception, Amara. Amara's eyes narrowed, her tone cool. No, that's discretion. You never asked about my dreams, only about my pedigree. That's not on me. Claudette froze. The room held its breath again. But this time, everyone knew. Amara was no longer just the bride-to-be. She was the lioness in the room. The tension in the room thickened as Claudette's words hung in the air. Her accusations were meant to shake Amara's confidence, but instead they unveiled something far deeper, the real fracture in Julian's family. Julian's mother, a woman known for her icy demeanor, finally spoke up, her voice sharp and cold. Secrets don't belong in this family. If you wanted acceptance, Amara, you should have been honest from the start. The guests whispered among themselves. Some nodded, others looked uncomfortable, sensing the cruelty beneath the polite words. Amara took a deep breath and replied firmly, I was honest about who I am. The only secret I had was what you refused to see, that I'm a woman who built her own success. I didn't hide anything, I just waited for the right moment to prove that I'm more than what your narrow minds expected. Julian stepped closer to Amara, protective yet proud. My family's judgment doesn't define her. It's their own insecurities that speak louder than any truth. One of Julian's cousins, who had stayed quiet until now, finally spoke. Maybe it's time we stop judging based on color or wealth and see the person standing in front of us. The room shifted uneasily. Some guests nodded in agreement. Others avoided eye contact. The power dynamics were changing, and it was clear Amara was no longer just fighting for love. She was fighting for respect and recognition in a world that had underestimated her. Julian whispered to Amara, You're stronger than they ever imagined. We're just getting started. Amara smiled softly, knowing this battle was far from over, but confident that truth and strength would carry her through. The murmurs in the room grew louder as the spotlight shifted from judgment to curiosity. The real bombshell was about to drop. Amara calmly reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. With steady fingers, she opened her banking app, showing the transaction history to everyone present. Here, she said, her voice clear and unwavering, is the secret bank transfer you all doubted. The screen displayed a large transfer, millions of dollars sent to Julian's family trust account, marked as a gift with no strings attached. The room went silent. Faces froze, eyes wide in disbelief. Julian's father, who had been the harshest critic moments ago, stared at the phone, his face draining of color. How? When did this happen? 3 months ago, Amara explained. I made this transfer anonymously because I believed that actions speak louder than words. I didn't want praise or recognition, I just wanted to help build a future for Julian and the family. Whispers turned into stunned gasps. Some guests exchanged looks of shock. Others looked at Amara with newfound respect. Claudette's smug smile vanished, replaced by stunned silence. She had underestimated Amara's influence and generosity. Julian stepped forward, holding Amara's hand tightly. She didn't just marry into this family, she invested in our future. This transfer changed everything. The mood in the room shifted dramatically. What once was an accusation became a testament to Amara's strength and generosity. The guests began to realize the woman they had doubted was actually the backbone of the family's new beginning. Amara had not only shattered the stereotype. They had witnessed a powerful woman rewriting her own story in front of their eyes. The atmosphere in the room had transformed completely. What began as a hostile gathering had now turned into a celebration of truth and integrity. Julian's father, still processing the revelation, stepped forward with a hesitant but genuine expression. Amara, I owe you an apology. I judged you too quickly, and I was wrong. You've shown more kindness and generosity than many in this family. Amara nodded gracefully. Thank you, sir. I believe family is about trust and support, not money or assumptions. Julian's mother, who had stayed silent all evening, wiped a tear away. You've reminded us what it truly means to be family. Not just blood, but heart. The guests began to applaud softly, the initial skepticism replaced by admiration. Many approached Amara, offering their congratulations and heartfelt apologies. Claudette, now cornered by her own arrogance, quietly slipped out of the room, her plan to humiliate Amara completely foiled. Julian pulled Amara close, whispering, "You were amazing tonight. I'm so proud of you." Amara smiled, her eyes shining with emotion. This was never about proving anything to them. It was about standing firm in who I am. As the night drew to a close, Julian and Amara stood together at the center of the room, no longer just husband and wife, but partners who had conquered prejudice and misunderstanding. Their love had faced the storm, and emerged stronger than ever. The guests left with a new perspective, reminded that true wealth lies not in possessions, but in loyalty, love, and integrity. This was a night that no one would forget, a night where a woman's truth shattered the chains of judgment, forever changing the family's story. The days after the wedding were filled with a renewed sense of hope and unity. The family, once divided by prejudice and assumptions, had begun to heal. Julian and Amara's love story became a symbol of courage and perseverance, inspiring those around them to look beyond appearances and value the true character of a person. Julian's father, humbled by the events, took steps to repair the strained relationships within the family. He reached out to Amara personally, not just as his daughter-in-law but as an equal partner and a respected member of the family. Slowly, walls that once divided began to crumble. Amara, with her quiet strength and unwavering dignity, continued to focus on her work. The secret bank transfer had not just revealed her financial independence, it had unveiled her generosity. She quietly supported several community programs and scholarships, helping others rise above their struggles. Julian admired her more each day. "You've changed my life in more ways than I can count," he often said. Together they dreamed of building a future that was not dictated by wealth or status, but by love, respect, and shared dreams. The whispers and judgments that once followed Amara faded into distant memories. What remained was a powerful truth. Love cannot be measured by money, and respect cannot be earned through assumptions. As they stood hand in hand, looking out at the horizon of their new life, Amara and Julian knew that their journey had only just begun. The battles they fought were stepping stones to a stronger, brighter future. Their story was no longer just about overcoming prejudice. It was about rewriting the definition of family, love, and success. And in that, they found their true victory. If you found this story inspiring, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful videos that reveal the truth behind every story. Comment below. What did you think about Amara's secret, and have you ever faced judgment based on assumptions? We want to hear your story. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an emotional journey like this. Thanks for watching.